Hi, everybody. This is Ramin Azar, owner and operator of Flex to Success Clinical Rehabilitation Services. Just want to do a quick video today on antisocial personality disorder, or also known as ASPD. What made me think to do this video today was I came across a video on YouTube discussing the differences between sociopaths and psychopaths, and both of those fall under the umbrella of antisocial personality disorder. So I wanted to run through the criteria of antisocial personality disorder from the DSM-5, and then I wanted to briefly go into the differences of sociopaths versus psychopaths, because I thought it was pretty interesting. It might be educational for some people, therapists, or just individuals who might be suffering from those conditions, because the better you understand the differences between sociopaths and psychopaths, if you're suffering from either one of those conditions, the better you'll be able to focus on what you need to get better, or improve your behavior, because everyone knows that sociopathy and psychopathy are not things that you can cure. There is no magic drug or miracle pill that could help you get over something like those illnesses. So education and talk therapy are the best treatments. And let me jump right to it. So, antisocial personality disorder is a pervasive pattern of disregard for and violation of the rights of others, occurring since about age 15 years old, as indicated by three or more of the following. So the first is a failure to conform to social norms with respect to lawful behaviors, as indicated by repeatedly performing acts that are grounds for arrest. So, pretty self explanatory. If you have a history of criminal activity, one of the things I would try to rule out if you came to me for therapy was antisocial personality disorder, especially if you had like a really, really large rap sheet of multiple violations of, you know, crimes or criminal codes. So, yeah, anytime, somebody comes to you as a patient and they have a long history of criminal activity, you want to try and rule out antisocial personality disorder right away, because chances are they're most likely suffering from that. And since it's a personality disorder, again, there are no pills, so talk therapy would be your best bet. And establishing a strong alliance with the person with ASPD and establishing that strong rapport should be goal number one for the therapist. And the way to do that is to have a very, very, very structured therapeutic setting when you're conducting therapy with somebody with ASPD. They have a commonality, or they tend to want to violate rules. So the stronger your rules are and the more firm you are on the stance of those rules, the better chance you have of helping somebody who has ASPD. If you're loosey goosey and softy softy, they're going to walk all over you, and therapy is going to be an absolute mess. So you want to keep that in mind. The second criteria is deceitfulness, as indicated by repeated lying, use of aliases, or conning others for personal profit or pleasure. So yeah, people with antisocial personality disorder, they tend to be kleptomaniacs. They don't have any remorse for their behavior. They'll steal, they'll rob you, they'll stick you up at gunpoint. They will not feel bad about it. They won't have nightmares about it. They won't go home and cry about it. They won't feel guilty about it. They won't call you up and apologize. They will go about their day as if absolutely nothing happened, and they will just spend the money or sell your belongings and be totally 110% okay with it. It's scary, it's sad, it's disturbing, but it's the reality of this disorder. ASPD people do not have remorse. They don't feel bad, they don't feel guilty, and they're not very emotional. The third criteria is impulsivity or failure to plan ahead. So, that's very self-explanatory. If you're impulsive, chances are you have a failure to plan ahead. If you planned ahead, then you probably wouldn't be impulsive. People that don't plan are impulsive. Why? Because they're usually put in situations where they're making decisions on the fly. So impulsivity in this disorder can be really scary because of the lengths that somebody with ASPD will go to get what they want or do what they want to do. If they have to, at their worst, kill someone to accomplish something, they're going to contemplate how to do that. If they only need to sidestep you somehow or, steal from you, then they're going to think about doing that. And they're going to think about it over and over and over again until they do it. And they probably aren't going to plan it out very well. It's probably going to be impulsive on the fly. And it's just very reckless. The fourth criteria is irritability or aggressiveness, as indicated by repeated physical fights or assaults. So, yeah, if street fighting is your thing, you probably have ASPD. People that get into constant street fights and are beating people up all the time and get a rush off of it and love bragging about it and talking about it, yeah, I would be concerned about that person. They probably have ASPD. If you have ASPD and you're getting into multiple street fights, you're going to have a really high chance of having some run-ins with the law. So that would make criteria 1 more significant. Criteria number 6. I'm sorry, I skipped one. Criteria number 5. Reckless disregard for the safety of self or others. So yeah, self-harm could be a component of ASPD. Engaging in reckless behaviors that cause harm to the self could be a symptom of ASPD. Engaging in behaviors that are going to cause harm to other people could definitely be a symptom of ASPD. So definite red flags. If you're seeing patterns of behavior like that, might want to rule out ASPD. Criteria number 6. Consistent irresponsibility as indicated by repeated failure to sustain consistent work behavior or honor financial obligations. So what does that mean? You're screwing up at work all the time and you're probably not paying your bills too. So if you have a history of getting fired from jobs, not meeting the requirements of multiple jobs that you've been able to obtain to the point where there's disciplinary action and then you're becoming terminated, if there's a pattern of that, yeah, I'd want to look into ASPD for that person, absolutely. If you have a history of getting yourself into financial trouble, running up credit cards, not paying bills ever, not even trying to pay bills, letting things get past due for like 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 months and not having any feeling of, no feelings of anxiety or nervousness or concern, yeah, ASPD, definitely. I would look into it. 7, lack of remorse, as indicated by being indifferent to or rationalizing having hurt, mistreated, or stolen from another person. So if you're beating up a defenseless person and then trying to justify it, red flag behavior. If you stole from somebody and you're trying to convince me that, it was for that person's own good and that, oh, you only did it because A, B, C, D, and E, chances are, 1, that's not even true. And 2, it's a red flag behavior. I'm going to be looking into ASPD as a possible diagnosis for that patient. So those are the 7 criteria of ASPD. Other things that you want to keep in mind, cluster B, the individual has to be at least 18 years old before you diagnose them with ASPD. Also, there has to be evidence of conduct disorder before age 15 if you're going to diagnose somebody with ASPD at age 18 or higher. Also, the occurrence of antisocial behavior is not exclusively during the course of a schizophrenia or bipolar episode. So individuals with schizophrenia tend to have psychotic episodes. where they act out, but that is a component of schizophrenia, not antisocial personality disorder. Also, individuals who are bipolar, when they go into the manic phase, they have a tendency to be extremely impulsive and reckless. So if they're having a bipolar manic episode, you don't want to confuse that with a diagnosis for ASPD. Therapy has to be extremely structured. Like I said before, there has to be strict rules put into place for um, for the therapy to be progressive and to help the individual improve. Um, you don't want to be lax with somebody with ASPD. You don't want to be easygoing. You want to be like, when that person comes into your office, like you want to be perked up, sitting straight up. You want to be ready to go because they're usually going to come to therapy and they're either going to test you and see if they can manipulate you or break you, or they're going to hit you with some serious traumatic stuff because they're trying to get better and they want to deal with all the trauma that they've had so that they can eventually overcome it and become a functional member of society to the best of their ability. So either way, you cannot be like a lax, easygoing therapist that kind of is laissez-faire and just lets whatever happen happen. You have to be on top of what's going on. You have to be awake, alert, and focused, and all hands on deck. You got to be ready to deal with whatever comes your way. You don't have to be that way with everybody, depending on what the diagnosis is. But with ASPD, I would stress that it takes a certain type of therapist to really deal with that disorder effectively. You have to be you have to be ready to do. You have to be ready to deal with some pretty deep traumatic stuff, and you do not want to be too passive while you're dealing with that stuff because you'll open the door to be manipulated, and it can happen extremely quickly with somebody with ASPD. Um, so psychopathy versus sociopathy. Um, Psychopathy is defined as a mental disorder in which an individual manifests amoral and antisocial behavior, shows a lack of ability to love or establish meaningful relationships, expresses extreme egocentricity, and a failure to learn from experience. So, just to break that down, somebody who's a psychopath, they're going to have really difficult time in a relationship, and I mean a really difficult time. They aren't going to express themselves very well. They're going to be extremely physically reactive. Your domestic violence abusers have a possibility of being psychopaths. um, they are extremely egocentric, meaning whatever their ego is focused on is going to be the center of every single conversation that they have with you. So you're going to be like, not, like your needs and stuff like are not going to be addressed. A psychopath is going to be focused on their ego and what they want and what they desire, and you are just going to be along for the ride. If you're not willing to be along for the ride, the psychopath is going to sense it right away, and they're not going to want to have anything to do with you. They're going to try and push you away. They're going to provoke you. They're going to be really nasty to you, and they're going to try and get you to get emotional and break you down emotionally and make you weak and sad and pathetic. And then they're going to try and take total advantage of you. It's a very like survival of the fittest, brutal type of extreme illness, and they have no remorse. They're ruthless. There's very few things that they won't be willing to do to break you down. So um, you have to be aware. If you're seeing red flag behaviors when you're in a relationship with somebody who's a psychopath, you want to start looking for ways out of that relationship. It's not going to end well for you. Um, I don't know many psychopaths that are in great relationships. I actually don't know of any. So, my advice would be if you're with somebody who you think might be a psychopath, to start to work towards ending that relationship. I don't care how much you love them. I don't care what plans you had for the future with them. um, you know, you're setting yourself up to be hurt and manipulated long term for, on a consistent basis until the end of your lifespan. So, no offense to people with, psychopathies, but I would not want to be in a relationship with somebody who's a psychopath, and I'm sure that other people out there would feel the same. If unless you're a psychopath too, then maybe, that's the perfect person for you. I don't know, but um, me personally, like I don't consider myself to be a psychopath, so I would not enjoy a relationship like that, and I would be looking for a way out. Sociopaths are a little bit different. So the definition of a sociopath is refers to a pattern of antisocial behaviors and attitudes including manipulation, deceit, aggression, and a lack of empathy for others. So it sounds very similar, and there absolutely is some overlap between psychopathy and sociopathy. I don't want to say that there isn't, but there are some subtle differences. Um, One of the subtle differences that I know of right off the bat is that I know people who are psychopaths, they tend to plan out being aggressive to intimidate their counterparts, partners in crime, partners in relationships, whoever is closest to them. They plan out being aggressive to intimidate that person into going along with their plan. Psychopaths are ruthless and they want to use aggression to intimidate. Sociopaths are a little bit different. They like to use their intellectual ability to dominate people. So, what does that mean? It doesn't mean that psychopaths aren't intelligent. Psychopaths are really, really, really good at mimicking emotions. And that takes a certain level of emotional intelligence and skill to be able to do that. Sociopaths do not mimic emotions very well. It's pretty clear, like, how selfish a sociopath really is. They kind of wear it on their sleeve. Um, they're very agenda oriented and they're not as clever in tricking people as the psychopath is. The psychopath will go to much deeper lengths to trick people. The sociopath will also use aggression as well, but they use aggression in a different way. They first start out with mentally breaking you down, intellectually breaking you down. Then, if that doesn't work, then they move towards more physical types of aggression. Whereas the person with psychopathy, they'll kind of jump to physical aggression right away. They don't like to play the mental game that much. Um, they have, an agenda, they're impulsive about it, they try to push forward to that agenda as quick as possible, where the sociopath is more calculating and takes their time and kind of incrementally moves towards their goal piece by piece. And, they have no problem with taking their time and breaking you down mentally until they get to that point. So those are the differences between psychopathy and sociopathy. Sociopaths don't mimic emotions that well. Psychopaths do. And sociopaths tend to be more, they like to play the mental game a little bit more, whereas people who are psychopaths, they tend to resort to physical violence much quicker. They both tend to be egocentric. They both try to accomplish goals and are relentless in doing so. So there is overlap, and that is my presentation for today. So if you are looking for counseling, therapy, or any type of therapeutic guidance, my number is 631-618-5940. My name is Ramin A. Azarm. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and the name of my company is called Flex to Success Clinical Rehabilitation Services, and I am accepting new clients, so feel free to come on board. All right, thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. Take care. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather. Bye.